Hey everyone, it looks like it's time to start. Thanks everyone for joining. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar, How to Make S&OP Work with AI Forecasting and How to Achieve Maximum S&OP Value with Practical Demonstrations. So this is our topic for today. In more details, we will discuss it later. But actually, let me start with a short intro. Let me introduce our speakers for today. Let me start with myself. My name is Natalie Lopachak-Ekshi, and I'm happy to be Vice President of Partnership at GMD Streamline. I'm also working my PhD in business education. I'm a certified supply chain planning expert, but my mission is to consolidate supply chain experts globally. This is actually what I do, actually 24/7. Let me also introduce our wonderful speakers today. Let me start with Ihor. Ihor Eisenblatter. He is Managing Director at Business View Consulting, and it is worth mentioning that he has more than 2 decades of experience in supply chain, both as corporate and consultant. Ihor has strong background in digital solution implementation, and currently he is successfully managing project of S&OP implementation for a large company, and he is successfully aligning more than 10 teams from more than 10 countries. So there is a lot of, I believe we will have a lot of insights from Ihor. So Ihor, thanks for joining us and welcome to this webinar. Let me continue with Philip. Philip Taylor. He's Managing Director at Kernel Supply Chain Solution Consulting. And let's mention that he has more than 30 years of experience if we're talking about supply chain. He participated in over 70 projects working with supply chain teams in different industries from manufacturing, retail, and wholesale. Let me also mention that Philip possesses an engineering degree, and he also has several years in manufacturing management. And again, I believe that we will have a lot of insights if we're talking about S&OP and supply chain industry. And let me finish this introduction actually with Amy Danvers, extremely talented supply chain expert. She is very successful in assisting and managing at the same time S&OP implementations. He is product expert in GMD Streamline, actually a company which is sponsor for this webinar today. And she is very talented if you're talking about practical implementation. She already has a practical experience in digital solution implementation and S&OP alignment. So Philip, thanks for joining, and Amy, thank you for joining as well. Happy to have you here on this webinar.
Happy to be here.
Let's move on. So I already introduced our wonderful speakers. Let's move on. I would also like to learn a little bit about our attendees, about our, actually, let me call it our guests, right? So ladies and gentlemen, if you can just write only one or two words, where you're located, what is your occupation or industry, like manufacturing, and just country, like Canada, right, or some European countries, so where you're located, it will really help us to, just to welcome you, to be more country or industry specific. We will really take this to attention. So we already have France and retail, we already have China and consulting, we have United Kingdom, perfect, we have Canada food industry, Brazil, London retail, okay, USA, Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil, so today, and Sweden and Denmark medical industry. Okay, perfect. Mexico manufacturing, Costa Rica pharmaceuticals, wonderful. Netherlands supply chain specialist, Canada IT industry, Brazil. Great, guys, thanks for sharing, because it's really helped us to understand who our guests are and how we can help you. Okay, Ukraine, welcome. Vienna IT industry, Law, Austria, just visited a couple of months ago. Holland, US, Pennsylvania. I used to live actually next to Pennsylvania, so welcome. Massachusetts, US. Great, guys, thanks for sharing. You make me, positive, satisfied having this webinar. Oh, Saudi Consulting, Thailand. Great. Germany, Los Angeles. Wonderful. Let's move on, guys. Thanks again for sharing. Let's move on. I see that our speakers already are smiling. They're welcoming you. Let's move on with our webinar logistics. So first of all, I highly encourage you to be very active, interactive, right? So please engage with us. We are here to have discussion, and our speakers are here to share experience, okay? So please feel free to submit all of your questions during this webinar. We will have Q&A session at the end of this webinar, of course. You will have chance to ask questions, but during this webinar, we will cover several subtopics. And whenever you have questions, whenever you would like to one of our speakers to respond, please let us know, and I will do my best to make sure that those questions are answered. Now, number two. As I already mentioned, interaction is very important to us. So this webinar will be interactive. We already had, it wasn't a poll, it was just my question, hey guys, where are you from? But we will have 3 polls, more industry and S&OP related. So please just give us your answers, because again, we want to learn more about you and your challenges. And recording, yes, we already have a question from Joseph. Will this be recorded? Of course, yes. You will have recording, I believe, 1 or 2 working days after this webinar. So you will just have it in your follow-up email. Thanks for asking it. Let's move on. And this is actually where I will say, Amy, again, thanks for joining us. It's nice having you here. And stage is yours. Let's move on.
All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today. So without further ado, we're starting with engagement part of our webinar. So right now, you're seeing a small pop-up window with a first poll on the screens. And the question is, what are the driving factors that are making you join us today? So what is it that you're looking to improve or develop in your S&OP? What are driving you to those changes? And we know that it can be a challenging process, so let us know what are the things that you're looking to find. Is it the solution to your demand volatility, or maybe to the supply chain disruptions? Maybe you want to improve your S&OP because of the suppliers post challenges, or the increased costs, or even interest rates hike. So please give us the answers. You can choose as many options that speaks the most to you, and we will be reviewing the results in a couple of seconds, just so that we have those results on the screen and we can discuss them, or we can also direct our answers to them. So please, I encourage all of you to join in the poll and explore the driving factors to develop or improve your S&OP process. Okay, so if we are done, let's see the results. And it looks like demand volatility is the leading cause for companies worldwide to look for S&OP improvements. And I'm totally here with you. We would be addressing that today, and the solutions to tackle your supply chain disruptions. So when we're talking about the S&OP process improvements, those are the leading factors for us to combat and for us to discuss. So our first topic for today would be why exactly S&OP process matters for the company. And I would invite one of our speakers, Igor, to elaborate on the what S&OP brings to the table and how we can get the best results out of it. Igor, up to you.
Good day. Thank you very much, Amy. And thank you, Natalie, for such a kind introduction as well. S&OP, Sales and Operations Planning. Yep, it's a tool. It's a very important tool these days. And what are we actually wanting to do with it? Well, it sits somewhere to help the strategy of an organization actually tie back to the tactical side, and the tactical side to connect to the strategic side. So S&OP sits very nicely in the middle, and it matters because it helps to manage our business. And the important part of managing our business, obviously, is that everybody has the same point of view. We don't want everybody running around looking at different points of view, and that just pulls the company in different directions. Strategy, of course, and execution need to absolutely talk to each other. And they need to talk to each other via people. That brings us to communication. And obviously, again, communication throughout the organization needs to be on par. We need to be talking about one thing and one thing only, not everybody else's point of view. And focus. We need to focus on the same set of priorities. In other words, if we put the whole thing in a nutshell, why does S&OP matter? We need one goal, we need a single focus, and we need a single point of view of the truth. Next, please. Right, so S&OP activities. Essentially, S&OP breaks down into 4 primary activities. The sequence is not as indicated, but it breaks down into those activities nevertheless. Data, we need to collect lots of data, as much as we can collect. And that obviously comes from our IT systems, not to forget our sales teams, which have a better understanding of the customers' points of view, as well as the market movements that are taking place and the market needs. Then at the operations teams, they need to also collect as much data as they can through their activities to provide a good set of information that we can work off. Then we have an evaluation of that data. Why do we have evaluation? Well, obviously, we want to understand what the data means to us. Data by itself is pretty useless. And the evaluation takes place through our demand and supply planners, the people that are on the ground, departmental level people, as well as the executive management, who will also be involved in the evaluation process. The consensus is finally reached on all levels, whether that be at planner level, departmental level, executive level. Consensus needs to be reached. And finally, once we have that consensus and we have the check mark next to going ahead, execution. And execution comes all the way from the operational leaders, the departmental people, the managers at those levels, and of course, not to forget your operational teams, all the way through, right to the coalface. So these are essentially the 4 primary considerations or activities in an S&OP. Next, please.
Ihor, it looks like we have a question regarding the slide from Daniel. Ihor, could you give us some examples of operations teams data?
Operation teams data. Okay, so what you would have been... Yes, I imagine teams would translate loosely into teams. All right, so essentially what we've got is, in an operational environment, we have got a lot of information that comes in. Information that says, what are our suppliers? Who are our suppliers? What are we buying from them? When are we buying from them? How much are we buying from them? How can they supply us? How much can they supply us as maximum? What are their minimum requirements? And all of these interesting pieces of information, lead times. How do we actually order from them? Do we use their SKU numbers or do we use our SKU numbers? And there is just a plethora of information at an operational level. The other operational level thing, of course, is from the planning side. And we need to understand, how are we going to take care of things like service levels? What's important around those questions? What are we going to do in terms of understanding how we're going to reduce costs? Because costs is always important. So it's a question of costs. It's a question of cost versus amount of inventory we're holding, which versus the amount of capital we need to expend on inventory. and so on. So there are many, many aspects. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Ivan.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Moving on then, so the steps. What are your S&OP steps? And we've just basically put it into some very simple flowchart here. At the month's end, we have the first stage, and again, it comes back to data gathering. And the data gathering will also bring out the forecasting. What is our expected forecast over the next month, 6 months, 12, 24 months, 36 months? We need to get an idea of where is everything going. And forecasting obviously also has the type of model that we're looking at. Is it a straight line? Is it a trend line? Is it a seasonality? Is it seasonality with trend, etc.? So once we've done the first stage, we've got all the information, we've got our forecast out. Statistical forecast goes forward and triggers the second stage, which is our demand planning. Demand then also looks at the forecast, what can we do in terms of demand? We need to take into account other factors like, for example, what the marketing changes, which is not always coming out of history, but looks into the future. What are the marketing needs? What are, for example, also the other needs of our individual customers? What do we know about them? What expansions are they going to go through? What are new products that they're bringing to market? So that obviously brings our demand planning into place, and we have our first stage forecast ready. The forecast now is the trigger for the supply planning. The supply looks at this demand and says, okay, how are we going to supply all these different requirements on time, every time? And once they've looked at all that, and they looked at the various risks that are involved, they look at, for example, what are the various constraints that they need to consider. And once we've had all that nicely worked out, we've got a third stage supply plan in place. That then is our second pass capacity constraints plan, and that we pass off as a trigger to the fourth stage. This is our pre-S&OP meeting, and the pre-S&OP meeting does a sanity check on the whole lot. And from that sanity check, if we're happy with it and all the questions are being answered adequately, then these recommendations are created and passed forward to the executive S&OP. In those recommendations will be obviously your constraints and your risks, and also not forgetting the solutions that are recommended. And it can sometimes be 2, 3, 4 different solutions, some of which will work, some of which are going to ask the executive S&OP, please help us make a decision on this or that matter. The executive S&OP then comes to decisions, and the output of that meeting will then trigger the execution of the plan. The execution of the plan will progress through the weeks ahead, and through the execution, we will accumulate even more data in our ERP systems, and that data feeds back into our data gathering first stage for the next month. And so the cycle continues month after month, year after year, always looking at improving our supply chain.
It looks like we have more questions.
Yes.
Where is flow? So if you can respond really shortly, where is finance? Yeah, this one first.
All right. Finance is sitting inside all of this, and we basically would look at saying, all right, if you're having a look at the forecast, finance needs to have an idea of what the forecast is going to look like. Finance also needs to understand what the demand plan is going to look like, because that demand plan is going to determine the supply. They need a heads up around that. So the supply plan is where they really, really need to also sit down and consider this. The planners are going to make a suggestion. The financial guys are going to look at this and say, does it make sense? How does it fit in with our budgets? The demand, the forecast, does it make sense with respect to our budgets? As well as to cash flow. How is this going to affect our cash flow? Is our cash flow going to be able to support this plan, or are we going to have to make an alternative arrangement? So that's where finance really fits in.
And there is one more question. Question, please, how many times are considering for all steps since beginning to end of cycle?
The time, well, traditionally the time is 4 weeks, because data gathering and modeling takes a good deal of time. But we're going to show you later on how we can change that. So I'm going to leave you on tenterhooks for a moment, and we're not going to take the wind out of Philip's sails, who's got a wonderful idea for you how this can all be improved.
Thank you, Igor. Let's move on.
Then we look at the companies that have implemented S&OP and what have they found, the benefits that strongly support some of their objectives. And this is really important. One of the primary things is your demand plan accuracy, because everything develops around that. You have already a significant increase of around just over 20% in terms of your accuracy. Some people report even more than that, others a little less. But on average, you're looking at 20, maybe 25% improvement. Revenue growth, a significant growth in your revenue of over 30%. Inventory reduction, well, we're all looking for inventory reduction because we want to free up capital. But there is a significant improvement in there as well. And that is almost 30% improvement. On-time delivery in full, well, that is, of course, speaks to your customer satisfaction, as well as to your invoicing capability, as well as your the return on your investment in the industry or in your inventory. And productivity increases significantly as well, because a lot of the work is done by the AIs. Next.
All right, thank you so much, Igor. That was very insightful. And to continue our conversation, I would like to direct the next question to our audience. Please let us know what is your greatest S&OP challenge right now. And as it was last time, you can select as many additional points as you want. So please let us know what speaks the most to you. Is it the case that you don't have any S&OP processes defined right now, or you're suffering from the long and inefficient cycles of communication that are leading nowhere? Maybe it's data modeling that slows things down, or is it inaccuracy with the demand? Hard to integrate sales teams forecasting, or responding to the delays in the supply chain, conflicting opinions, or maybe just teamwork consolidation that takes priority for your challenges today. So let us know. We look forward to going through your answers. So please, I encourage everyone here to participate. We will be discovering how exactly we can help you in a couple of minutes. So let's give it a look if everyone has chance to vote, and let me know if we have the results. Okay, all right. So let's see what we have here. Inaccurate demand forecast, of course, that would be the top priority for everyone here. And luckily, we do have a solution. Hard to plan to integrate sales team forecasts, of course, that would be a biggest challenge. But we also have people here who are suffering from a long and inefficient cycle of communication, and even those who want to consolidate the teamwork better or to establish the S&OP process. So thank you everyone for sharing your results. We will be discussing more of it later. And let me give you an idea for what our conversation today would be focusing about. So we're looking at S&OP and how to overcome those challenges you've shared so kindly with us. So first point for us would be to achieve harmony in collaboration and unify those perspectives from sales, supply chain, and as someone has mentioned today, the finance. We will be looking to strike the balance between our restrictions and our goals, how to manage the inventory, balance the service levels and profits and cash flows and all of that. And of course, getting to the clear decisions, which is the top priority for any S&OP circle. And since we are talking about the AI forecasting in the core of all of this, let me also introduce to you the other party that would be involved. And we are today supported through Streamline, which is one of them leading predictive analytics solutions worldwide, which is there to build up demand forecasting and create a more integrated flow with inventory management. So Streamline has deemed one of the leaders on G2 with the overall 4.5 marking in its usability and also a leading position in the industry. And we've earned the trust of more than 1,200 customers worldwide. More than that, Streamline is also taking the first place as one of the leading supply chain platforms that can benefit the S&OP process. And we are very proud of those results, and we are proud to share how those results can help you today. So right now, I will pass the word to Philip, who will tell us how do we unify the perspectives between the different teams for our SOP consolidation. Philip, up to you.
Thank you, Amy. And hello, everybody around the world. Yes, so our first challenge, as Amy expressed it, is harmony and collaboration. How can we unify the perspectives between the sales, the operations, and the financial teams? Now, I've just shown on this slide that each team has a different perspective. So the planning team and the operations side, their objective, first of all, is forecast accuracy. The commercial team on the sales side, probably their objective is a little bit different. It's all about meeting the customer demand and making sure they satisfy their customers. And then the financial team, again, probably their number one objective is to keep control of things and make sure the company is meeting the budget. So how are we doing against the budget? Will this plan actually mean we achieve the budget for the next quarter or the rest of the year or not? And even with separate objectives, we also have different ways of looking at the situation, looking at the data. So how do we group products together? In the planning team, they're probably wanting to look at what it means for each supplier, or if you have your own manufacturing, for each plant, each work center within those plants. What do we want to group the products together in that way. Commercial team are not so interested in that. They want to know about the market channels, how much we're selling in this country or in this channel, and where else is the product potentially going. Financial team, probably much the same. And going down a level further, how much detail do we need to look at? So if you're in inventory planning and supply planning, you've got to go right down to the individual item, the SKU. It's no good having product 123 in stock if what the customer wants is product 124. But when you're thinking about sales on the commercial side, probably don't need to think about individual SKUs, but whole product categories, bunch them all together and think about what's happening to that category. And similarly, the financial team probably looking at it in the same way. And even the language we're speaking can be different between different teams. And I found in my work in this area over many years that just trying to get to one language is quite difficult, because supply planning is interested in quantity on the operations side. Commercial teams are nearly always talking in value, in the dollars or euros or rand, whatever is relevant to you. And because they're focusing on the revenue that's coming in the door. And the financial team are also interested in the dollars, but they want to extend that into profit margins and cash flows, as Igor already mentioned. So we've got different languages, different levels of detail, different product groups, and different objectives. So we just said that collaboration is critical, but how are we going to do that? Next, please. We got two choices. In the past, we used to have to force a compromise and try and find, for example, a product category, a product grouping that would work for the sales teams and also work for the operations teams. And that's a really hard thing to do because they're talking different languages and looking different ways. But now, with AI in the systems, we can actually show all these perspectives simultaneously. We can have a commercial forecast and a statistical forecast. We can have categories that make sense to salespeople and categories that make sense to buyers. We can have SKU details and category totals together. We can look at quantity and look at value and flip back and look at quantity again and look at value again. And I'd just like to show you now how that operates in the Streamline platform. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. Okay. So what you're seeing here is a live example of the Streamline system. On the left here, you've got different tabs. I'm just looking at the demand at the moment. And what we're seeing here is a particular SKU this company sells, which is blue swimwear. And what you can see in the table is the actual sales history. I've got 2 years on here. By the way, this is example is set up as at a year ago. So imagine this is at the end of December 2022. So we got the sales running up to there. And then going forward in red, you can see the statistical forecast, which has been created by the Streamline AI engine, looking at the history and applying the most relevant model to this particular product. And if you look at the chart, you can see it's quite seasonal. It is swimwear. But the important thing on this page is the yellow cells. So if in the planning we decide actually this number here is not correct for whatever reason, it's not going to be 11,000, and there it is. So the supply planning team or the statistical demand planners can look at this and they can make adjustments. But now let's suppose you want to bring in the sales team. And a number of you said it's hard to integrate the sales forecasts into the S&OP. And that's absolutely my experience. And let's say we bring in the sales team and we want to have their forecast. What we can do, we can click on forecast versions, say create a forecast, and let's call this one the commercial forecast. We have as many of these as we like. Click create, go back here, and all of a sudden you'll see there's a new row here called commercial. But suppose the commercial team, they don't want to forecast just this blue swimsuit. They want to forecast the whole of the summer clothing together. So we can go up to the category level that makes sense to them. And they can come in here and say, well, actually, we think that from March onwards, we got a super new product range coming out and we're going to get some new customers. So we think the sales are going to go up by 20% across the whole range. So we can go in and say, multiply that by 1.2, and we'll propagate it to the right. So it goes forward. And suddenly you see we've got, oh, sorry, I put it in the wrong place. My mistake. 1.2 and propagate that to the right. And now we've got a forecast in here, which is the commercial forecast. We can then look at that and we can say, yes, we do want to accept that one, in which case we just apply it to the final forecast there. Or we could do something like create a formula which is somewhere between the statistical forecast and the commercial and propagate that into the final forecast. Also here, we were working a moment ago in quantities. There's the forecast in quantity, and we can flick over and see it in revenue. It's the same shape because the price hasn't changed, but it's different values. Looking at $3.5 million versus 50,000 pieces. So we've now resolved the problem that we can see it at the forecast at a group level, at a SKU level, in revenue and in quantity, and we can put in as many forecasts as we like. We could have a budget line, we could have a marketing line, and so on. So I'm going to stop that share for the moment. Go back to the slides, please.
Before I do that, could you please answer questions which we have from our guests, actually our audience, Philip? And because we have already 4 and I just cannot keep them without answer. So first one is, what is the difference between S&OP and IBP? If you can just be very short and explain it. I love it.
Okay. Good question, actually, because a lot of people don't. There's lots of different answers. Basically, I think S&OP originally it stood for Sales and Operations Planning. Okay, and that probably included inventory, which is part of operations, and supply as well as demand. And then people realized that a lot of companies have that forecast, that plan, and they have a completely different financial forecast, usually called something like the LEI, the latest estimate, or the budget revision, or whatever. And this causes confusion. We said one truth, Igor said we want one truth, one set of numbers. So IBP, Integrated Business Planning, brings finance into the story. Also, there's another point that's going across the organization, but we can also go up and down the supply chain. Another big move is to say, okay, can we bring our customers in here? Do we have a customer forecast? Let's have a line for them in our Streamline table there. We can do that. Do we have a supplier view? Can we put in what the supplier is telling us they can cope with? So we bring the supplier and the customer into our planning, extend the supply chain up and down the industry flow. That I would say are the two most important things in IBP. But fundamentally, one is just a more advanced version of the other.
Thank you so much. One more question. What if sales team achieve very good SFA, but will lose market opportunities?
They achieve very good
SFA.
Okay, sales forecast accuracy, and they lose okay, so they're sticking to they're sticking to their forecast, but not actually bothering to sell. Not a very common problem, but yeah, okay. No, it's interesting. If the sales team make a fantastic sale, okay, they break out the champagne, yeah, they say, great, we made a great sale, we beat our targets by 50%. But the planning team are going like this. Oh no, we can't cope with that because we didn't put the supply. The plan accuracy is very bad. But yeah, of course, you don't want normally to hold back your sales team just to keep the forecast accuracy. What you do is look at it, what happened, learn from it, and try and make sure next time we have some warning about this, if it's possible. Where did this big order come from? Did nobody know about it? You didn't tell us because it was only a possibility. Tell us about the possibilities as well as the certainties. So yeah, we should improve the SFA, the forecast accuracy with time, but we don't want to stop the sales team from selling, that's for sure.
Thank you so much. One more, what is behind AI engine? Let me answer for this one. At the end of this webinar, I will be sharing some articles with you. I believe that you will find more information about AI in those articles. And there is one more question. Do you partner with universities to academically promote the use of Streamline software? So Streamline as a company has very strong beliefs that we have to support academical world universities. So we do partner. Just contact with us after webinar, and we will discuss actually how we can do. So answer is yes. Thank you so much for these answers. These questions, guys, let's move on.
So now I'd like to hand over to Igor to discuss the second challenge.
You're unfortunately muted. We would love to hear your voice if it's possible.
I will offer you my voice now. Thank you. I just had some background noise I had to get rid of. Anyway, yeah, I think one of the most difficult parts really of any planning is balance. And balance is really what it's all about. We need to balance between the sales forecast, using data, understanding the demand and the supply, and create recommendations. These are all balances that need to take place. We need to understand the customer's needs, as well as the customer does. And the customer is not only the individual customer, the customer is also market segments. We need to understand those. We need to understand how much inventory are we going to need to meet those needs. That becomes our demand planning, and that comes together with data gathering. Our inventory, how are we going to fulfill our inventory needs? Considering things like constraints and risks. What are our service levels going to look like? Are we going to work at 80% and be satisfied with having 80% of the time stock on hand and 20% not? Or do we need to go to 98% and take the risk of 2% stock outs and so on? All of this obviously has financial impacts, and also all the way back into our revenue impacts, our profit impacts, and how much capital we're finally going to employ. All this needs to be understood and balanced. And how are we going to get all this together to provide the right set of recommendations to the executives, to understand what the challenges are, and to understand the risks and how we're going to overcome those? So let me go and explain a little bit to you in terms of Streamline's AI. And if we can go to that, I'm just going to share screen very briefly. All right, you've seen this kind of screen before now. I think Philip has taken you through this very nicely, and you've got a fairly good idea of what we're doing in terms of demand. But now let's take it a step further, and let's go to the inventory level, our second tab here. And here we're going to see our full set of inventory in all its detail. As many inventory items as you have, we're going to keep it simple here down to 22 items. And we're going to also keep it simple in terms of our locations. But obviously, we can have locations all over the world. We can have location categories all over the world, and so on. Now, what are some of our concerns really in terms of balancing? And here we can have a look at, for example, what models are we going to use? Does this make sense? Just a question at the moment. No answers available yet. But we're also going to have a look at our on hand, what's available. And ultimately, we're going to turn around and say, where can we make changes? Now, I spoke about service level here. And which one of these items, at the moment, everything's at 98%. We want to be able to sell everything all the time. Here's another aspect that you can look at, ABC analysis. And in your ABC analysis, you can go into settings, you can go into your ABC analysis here, and you can decide whether you're doing 2, 3, or 4 levels, and what the percentage is going to be. You can make changes here, and decide on what levels you're going to look at. Once you've done that, you can save, and you can now go back to your inventory. Now it becomes interesting, because what you're looking at now is to say, in terms of my ABCs, okay, what am I going to actually, what is my top sales and what are my other sales? And now we see it's mixed up here, so we're just quickly going to do a sort. And we're going to sort it from highest to lowest. There we go. Our A's are on top. And we can say, all right, fine. Service level for A at 98% makes sense. However, when we look at our C's, they're only contributing perhaps 0.5% down to much less. So the question is, perhaps for our C items, we don't want to actually have 98%. We'd like to maybe have 85%. And now, what is that effect going to be in terms of our safety stock levels, for example? Which do cost a good deal of money. So if we say 85% and I enter that, now they've all become 85% because I've marked them all. So it's a very quick way of doing this. And I can suddenly see my safety stock has really plummeted. Okay. And if I want to go back, I can just delete this briefly, go back to what the original value was, 98%, 1,390 versus 702. That is a significant saving already. So that's the one thing that we can consider. Just looking at safety stock. There's another aspect of looking at your stock in terms of what we call turn earn. And the turn earn ratio is another very, very interesting aspect. Okay, where we can now find our turn earn ratio is we can add another column. And adding another column means that, just get this out the way. There we go. I'll have this up next time properly, so I don't have to go searching for the thing. There it is. So turn earn ratio is very important because what it is, it's a combination of two pieces of information. Your inventory turns multiplied by your profit, and hence turn earn. The higher the value, the more profitable it is to sell this item. And suddenly you have an interesting quandary. You have a situation here that you have a turn earn. Remember, I highlighted all the C levels, and this is a very high turn earn ratio, which means one of our C level items is earning a huge amount of profit for us because of the number of times it turns and its profit level. So perhaps for this item, we should not be going at 85%, but we should go back to 98%. And so you can very quickly pick up where there are anomalies, if you like, or outliers that you need to take into account. And here immediately, we have now done a good deal of information in terms of optimization. That is just one of the many, many ways in which we can optimize information with all of it that becomes available. We can optimize in terms of our current order. How much are we going to purchase? And we can decide on an override. We can say, you know what, 20,000 is just too much for us at this point in time. We're going to go for 15,000. And now Streamline takes 15,000 into account, and instead of 20, and the cost of our sales and cost of our holding of stock also decreases. So there are many, many different ways that we can start looking at this, and all of it essentially on a single page. So from that point of view, you can see how you can start balancing all these things very quickly. There are ways of even bringing down your information further. You can determine, for example, through filters, and you can look at, for example, locations, and you can look for a specific location. In this case, we've got warehouse 1, and looking at just in warehouse 1, what have we got? Here it is. And now we can just look at by warehouse or by category, whatever you want to do. There's many different ways that you can actually look at finding a way of balancing your inventory to simplify it. I hope this has given you some sense of an idea of what the opportunities are.
We do have questions actually, Igor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
And a lot of them. So let's move on.
Okay.
First one, can the changes you're making currently be saved in several scenarios, and can they be compared in the UI?
Yes, we obviously can create several scenarios. One of the ways of doing that is we can export the, I'm going to actually share this so I can show you what I'm thinking of. Okay, here we go. And one of the ways that we can actually do various scenario plans is we can go into a system called Time Machine. Time Machine is a wonderful opportunity. It actually provides the opportunity to create all sorts of scenarios. You can create a scenario, switch on the time machine, and now what we can do is, our current date is from that date onwards, we can step in a simulation step of 1 day, or we can go all the way through to 1 year. So let's just do 90 days to keep it as simple as that. And now we can actually turn around and say travel. Now, Streamline will quickly sort out what is it going to look like over the next 90 days in terms of all your inventory and what you're going to need. So here we've got our current order again, but you want to see more information. So now we can go in here and we can look at our demand forecast. And we can have a look at, for example, our projected inventory levels. There are, of course, days of supply as well, but let's just keep it simple for the moment.
Thank you.
So here's our demand, yeah. And here's our projected inventory levels, month by month for the next couple of months. Now you can see a lot of information. This can be saved and compared.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. We don't have like too much time. We still have only 10 minutes and too many questions. So let's try to just answer to them like yes or no. So will demand forecasting become absolute as a result of these AI tools?
No, definitely not absolute.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something that you can change. One of the important things is you'll notice that there are headings that are normal white and there are the yellow headings. The yellow headings over here are where you can make any changes that you require. You can go in, you can overwrite this, you can turn around and say, you know what, the safety stock of 2,482 here, no, we're going to go down for the moment for XYZ reason, and we're going to go to 500. Now it's 500 with all the related changes. There are many changes that you can make. You can go into demand. And here we can go and have a look at wider changes. Everything that is yellow can be changed. And you can work on either a total company level or a category level or a specific item. And if we say, for example, we want to make a change here at 614,000, we can decide on we want 500,000 as part of our budget, because that's what our budget is. Our revenue needs to be. And we enter that. Streamline does the calculation. It says, well, in that case, you're going to have to sell 5,000 desks. Okay. And that is how it can also very quickly help you understand what you need to do. So on all levels, you're going to find yellow markers that are going to give you the option of being able to make changes on the fly. Here we have our final forecast. It's all very good and well. But if I now just go pop back here, and I want to, for example, look at my planned orders, what the system is suggesting, there's what they suggest. Here's one of the changes I've made. And I can decide to make another change over here. And now the system has planned 500 instead of the 200. And all over the place, we can make changes. So it is not cast in concrete. It is a suggestion. The AI constantly makes suggestions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ihor. Thank you for a nice demonstration. Guys, we have a lot of questions from you. Unfortunately, we cannot right now answer all of them because we still have a little bit more than 5-7 minutes for this webinar. But let me just, I was supposed to tell 5 minutes later, but let me tell you right now, if you don't answer your questions right now, you will have chance to book a call with our experts and ask your questions personally. We will give this opportunity to you a little bit later, okay? Right now, let me just, before we move to next one, and before I say that Philip, stage is yours, let me read one comment. I believe, so this is from Lopez Alejandro, I believe our current client or potential client, but this gentleman is saying the time machine is an awesome tool, we already tried this. So thank you for this comment. I'm happy that you like it. Philip, stage is yours. Let's move on.
Thank you very much. Yes, so our third obstacle or difficulty is in S&OP is perhaps the most difficult. How do we get the executive team to actually make a clear decision? And I've been in so many meetings where that didn't happen. So just taking a quick view of this, on the right here, the first 3 stages, as Igor explained, is about building up the data, and we need to build trust in the data so people all believe the numbers. Then we get over to the pre-S&OP, where we should be able to align supply and demand by making changes of the sort that Igor was just mentioning. And typically that resolves by 80% of the issues. But sometimes there are some areas where it's difficult to get a decision because there are 2 options, say. One might be to air freight the product in from China, where it's being manufactured at great expense. Or the other option is you don't do that, but you lower the service level to important customers and they get rather upset. So it's bad and bad. And we then need to pass that up to the executive team to make a decision. But they can't make a decision unless they're fed what we've got in the bottom left-hand corner here, which is costed options with simulations. So we need to be able to say, if we do this, this is what it's going to cost us, this is what the result's going to be, as Igor was just showing you. And we can use the time machine to do that and see where we would get to. If that doesn't give us a good result, we can set up a different scenario and run the time machine again. And you saw when Igor did it just now, it takes about 30 seconds. Even with a big selection of items, it'll only take a minute or 2. So you can run many, many scenarios and then pick 2 or 3 of the best ones and recommend those to the executive team to choose between. And that I think is an absolutely critical way of going ahead. Can we have the next slide, please? And the next one. Okay, so I'd just like to draw some conclusions here. Next slide, please. First of all, one of the things that's very important, it got mentioned earlier on, is that the help of AI can be to cut the cycle time in S&OP. Traditionally, we spend a couple of weeks demand modeling, don't have enough time really to analyze demand properly, sitting down with the sales and marketing teams. Then we hand it over to the supply team. If it's on Excel, it's one sheet going over to another sheet, a lot of trouble. Not enough time to develop options. You're lucky if you can do one or two, and then it's hard to make a good decision at the executive level. With an AI system like Streamline, you don't need those first 2 weeks because it will produce the demand figures, the statistical forecast in 30 seconds, or 1 second actually. Then you've got more time to demand analysis. You could start working on supply simultaneously because what Igor was showing you on the inventory tab is the supply view. You could develop many more options in a short time, and you get better, quicker decisions out of the executive team. So that is really where we get to. Igor, you've got some conclusions as well, I think.
Thank you, Philip. Yes. And I think what you've been saying is so very, very important. I would say it is make or break. If you get that, if you follow what Philip has been saying, there's so much that can come right. And to get the executive on your side is what it's about. It's about precision. It's about getting your planning right. It's about giving your planning information in such a way that it makes sense and that the planning clearly shows where the opportunities are and where the problems are. And obviously, AI-driven forecasts make a huge difference because they take all the different considerations into account, all the constraints. Then, of course, the what-if insights. And we look at, as we saw, for example, briefly, the time machine, which is a type of digital twin. It offers the opportunity to sort of run a pseudo ERP output that you can actually evaluate. And that is the kind of thing that you can also bring to executives in the meeting, and they can understand far better and far more quickly what it's actually going to do. This what-if insights and your precision in planning builds trust. Trust in the data, trust between the team groups, trust between the team members. And once trust is established, a lot more changes in the organization. And the whole question of precision becomes ever more obvious. So I think this is a very, very important slide in terms of just understanding how an organization could start working together, working with an AI-based S&OP system. Next. So impacts on the SOP. Well, the supply chain is impacted by an SOP significantly. What you've got is improved forecast accuracy, as we've said. Stock is brought to a good level, whether it's over or understocking. Your processes, manual processes are removed, which also removes the fat finger error process. Repetitive tasks are taken out, which makes a huge amount of difference to those who are working because the boredom factor is taken out and the error factor gets out. Positive impact on your profitability because you can actually plan towards it. So your supply chain improvements, excuse me, impact your S&OP. Your efficiency, your decision-making gets clearer, and balancing objectives becomes easier. And one of the most important things, obviously, is improving your customer satisfaction. So all these things become very, very important. Supply chain feeds S&OP, S&OP feeds the supply chain. It's a closed loop system. Next.
Okay, and for the concluding part of our presentation, so let us know what kind of priority do those changes to and improvements to your S&OP pose to your business right now. So we are looking at the third and the last poll of this webinar right now on the screen. And give us the mark if the improving S&OP process is top priority for you. You would like to resolve it in under 6 months, or perhaps it is somewhere on the horizon, but you're not very sure of when you can get to it. So please put a mark in the most relevant place on the screen, and we will review the result.
Thank you, Amy.
Let's just a couple of more seconds and let us see the result. Okay, so top priority takes the priority of this list, and I'm very happy that we were able to show you just how much beneficial S&OP improvements with AI can be for you. High priority and moderate priority are also taking the top spots. So we would be very happy to share the next few slides if you can give us a couple of more minutes to conclude the presentation.
I believe 3 will be enough. I will do my best to do it really short. So guys, let's conclude what could be our next step to improve S&OP process, right? So first of all, strategy. First of all, strategy for S&OP improvement. What do you need to improve? What collaboration between your departments is necessary? This is important. Now, develop better data visibility. Again, this is something our experts were already communicating about, and this is what we really need. I already promised to you that we will give a possibility of having free consultation with our experts. And when I'm talking about experts, I'm talking about Philip and Igor. So they kindly provided to us this opportunity. And our support team will right now share calendars of their assistants, right? So if you have, I know that there are some questions we just didn't have time to respond to them. So first of all, thank you for those questions. What we will do, first of all, our team will come back to you with emails to respond to them. And you also can discuss those questions with Igor and with Philip. So please book consultation with them to continue this conversation. I do understand that communicating with them is very valuable and you want to continue. But there is one more recommendation from me, from my side. I also, again, business efficiency is not possible without education. And I already promised to you that I will share some articles for further reading about AI and how Streamline is empowered by AI. So those articles were published just recently, this year or last year, by our leading experts on Forbes magazine. So first of all, overcoming supply chain challenges with AI, what large manufacturers need to know. You will find some information about AI over there. How digital twins can help supply chain survive disruptions. Again, it's about digital twins and AI, and how AI can streamline sales and operation planning. So again, many answers to questions you were asking right now, you can find over there. So feel free to go to those articles, have further reading, and book a call with our experts, with Philip and Igor. Let's move on. Usually we have a QA session. So guys, I know that our webinar should finish just 2 minutes ago, but if you would like, I will ask our experts to spend a couple of minutes with us so we can discuss your questions. So Igor and Philip, who would like to answer the question, what is AI capacity item to add? What is AI's capacity item to add? This is from Paul.
Igor, do you want to go on that one? You're on mute.
Guys, probably it was my mistake. So let's discuss those questions actually on consultations. I'm sure that our attendees will just book them and we can discuss it. We already have a lot of thank you so much, Gracias. Thank you very much for webinar. Guys, friends, attendees, thanks for joining. Thank you for your kind words. Thanks for your nice messages. It was a pleasure communicating with you. I had a lot of beautiful emotions during today's webinar. And thank you, Amy. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Philip, for joining. Thanks for sharing your experience. And thank you so much our support team for helping us with technical support of this webinar and responding to some questions. Thank you, everyone, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day, wherever you are.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Hope to see you. Yes, question, will this be recording? Of course, yes, you will receive it 1 or 2 days after today's webinar. So just give us 1 day to, to add it a little bit, to cut off some pieces which are not important for you, and we will send it to you. Thanks, team. We continue having messages. Thank you from attendees. I believe that we did a great job. So thank you, Igor, Philip, and Amy, for this beautiful webinar, beautiful content. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Hope to see you in next webinars. Bye.